A damning new poll done by Gallup shows Americans aren't really confident in people in a lot of different professions. In fact, across the board, a lot of trust has been squandered in regard to how people are carrying out various professions. And these professions are losing a lot of respect when traditionally people saw them as respectful jobs. So let's get into the details. Gallup asked people how they would rate the honesty and ethical standards of people in various professions. And overall, the average honesty and ethics ratings for 11 core professions was just 30% in Monday's report, down from 40% in 2005. So look, things weren't great in 2005, but things are even worse now. That's the point here. So looking at individual professions, 5 had majority positive ratings. So that's good. And I largely agree with it, with the exception of maybe 1. So take a look at this chart. The highest on the list was nurses at 76%, followed by grade school teachers, military officers, interesting, pharmacists. Now, pharmacists are different.
Woke.
Pharmacists are different from pharmaceutical companies, but I can't help but think about the pill mills that aided and abetted the opioid epidemic. So it's kind of interesting that pharmacists rank pretty high when it comes to trust. And then medical doctors, they rank pretty high as well at 53%. But despite being among the highest on the list, confidence in medical professionals has fallen over time. So trust in medical doctors has fallen 14 percentage points since 2021. After reaching a historical high of 77% in 2020, doctors' ethics rating not only returned to its 2019 pre-pandemic level of 65%, but at 53% is now the lowest since the mid-1990s. And look, I think COVID does have a lot to do with it. I hate how much COVID became politicized, how much it became a partisan issue. I think mistakes were made during the pandemic, but COVID was a novel virus. We didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know a lot of things going into it, but anyway, we can spend an entire hour talking about that. Let's talk about the 3 professions that had majority negative ratings. And we're kind of involved here, John. Okay, so how US adults rate the ethics and honesty of select professions, and you have TV reporters at just 13%. So only 13% of respondents rated the honesty and ethics of TV reporters as high or very high. 8% for members of Congress, and a measly 4% for lobbyists, which didn't even fit on Axios's graphic. You know, the little purple sliver there wasn't big enough to include a 4% text. And look, I largely agree with the 3 lowest rated professions, even though we're kind of part of one of them. So
Yeah, for lobbyists to be at 4%, my takeaway is that I guess 4% of Americans are lobbyists. I think that's the only explanation that makes any sense.
Or politicians.
Yeah, or I guess, okay, I suppose like the Sunrise Movement has some lobbyists or whatever. Like there's some lobbyists that aren't for corporations, I guess, I suppose. Like the media personalities, I don't necessarily trust them, and I don't necessarily care if people trust them. I think it makes sense that people's trust in them has gone down considering what TV news especially has become of late. And also what people are seeing from, like newspapers. For some of those though, I think the reason these evaluations have gone down is complicated. I think that social media probably plays into it. And there's a lot of reasons. For me though, the part of it that bothers me is what I see as the coordinated effort by the right to destroy faith. Like fact-free, destroy faith in especially academics, professors, grade school teachers, doctors as well over time. I think if people are, rightly having an issue with these fields, then it makes sense that they would change their evaluation. But when it's just Fox News bad-mouthing them, especially when it feels to me like a distraction, like you get them to hate the doctors and the professors so they won't spend time hating the investment bankers and the CEOs. Like those are the professions that you should be losing faith in, but you're too busy thinking about how, oh, I don't know, my second grade teacher might be a groomer or whatever. Like we only have so much attention economy.
Yeah, but to be fair, grade school teachers ranked really high in like trust and honesty.
They're still high, but I think lower than they were. But yes, you're right. Yeah. They still have maintained, a pretty high level. That's true.
Nurses are at 76%, grade school teachers 61%. By the way, nurses are based. I love nurses.
Why would nurses only be at 76? Who's critiquing nurses?
I don't know, but nurses make the world go round. All right. They do the hard work. Doctor comes in for like 10 minutes if you're lucky. The nurse does all the
screw doctors.
I mean, I love doctors too, but like, look, when it comes to a lot of the hard work, the nurses do it.
I agree.
I'm just keeping it 100. And I've had a lot of experience recently with family members who are battling cancer. So I'm so grateful for nurses. Okay, let's take a look at this graph, okay? So look, at its peak in 1976, 72% of Americans had a great deal or fair amount of trust in the media. So I wanted to show you that to kind of juxtapose it with the fact that such a tiny, tiny percentage of people, only 13%, rate the ethics and honesty of TV reporters as, high. Back in 1976, it was 72%. But remember, back in 1976, we had something called the Fairness Doctrine that regulated the media industry. So if you were going to have the opportunity to broadcast, use the public airwaves to broadcast, you had to give equal time to both sides of an issue and all of that. Obviously, with the Reagan administration dismantling the Fairness Doctrine, all of that fairness has gone away. And also today, that has dropped to 31% when it comes to the media overall. So it went from 72% in 1976 when it comes to the media overall to just 31% now, while 36% say they have no confidence in the media at all. So there you have it. Not good, very bad. And I think, look, there's good reason in some instances for people to feel less trust towards certain professions. But I don't think we should throw the baby out with the bathwater. It kind of reminds me of how angry people were when Jeff Bezos nixed the endorsement for Kamala Harris and they all like stopped being paid subscribers to the Washington Post. I totally understand the fury that people were feeling, but at the same time, there are some pretty good journalists who are employed by the Washington Post, and their reporting is important. I don't think you should throw the baby out with the bathwater. But at the same time, yeah, a lot of these professions have made big mistakes over the years. And I think the most important thing people can do in these professions is just be self-reflective and admit when you're wrong and try to do better. That's the only way to build trust among people.